We were talking about.
Yes, we were talking about Darrell Lysens and Kevin MacMichael and the FourToGo fan club. You have recorded all this. You had the FourToGo card, the fan club card. When you remember, you had to pay $10 or something. I remember that. You had to pay to belong to it, right? Ran by Darrell Lysens' wife, Margaret.
So going back, what was the where it really came together? Like, was it when Sandy moved into the neighborhood?
Sandy never moved in the neighborhood. He was in Cold Harbor. But I don't know how they made contact with Sandy. When the four of us were together, the FourToGo, and then they involved me, then we wanted to be the best that we could as kids, right? As a little local band.
And how old were you guys?
14, 15, 16.
14, 15?
16 years old, right? I was in high school.
Hanging around in the rumpus room downstairs? Or
no rumpus room. It was a den.
Oh, a den.
Darrell Lysens' house, they had coal in those days, and his dad changed to oil, so the whole basement was empty. So Darrell started the den in the basement. So
before the FourToGo, you guys were just kicking around, playing, and...
Darrell Lysens and I grew up since we were 5 years old in the neighborhood. So we have the history that goes way back then. Right? And Darrell was an only child, so we called him the fat, spoiled brat. Right? He didn't learn to do his shoelaces up till he was 6. We'd really give him a hard time, rake him over the coals. His father had captain's rounds, so when his dad came home, discipline went from one extreme to the other. Darrell's mother, Ida, was the most delightful woman that you would ever meet, and such a loving and caring person, right? And her and Paul had just like Darrell, they had the most unbelievable relationship. But so, Paul, yes?
So you guys were just doing the kids stuff, the normal around the neighborhood.
Darrell started with playing drums. He wanted to learn how to play that. And Kevin was playing guitar, right? So they fooled around in the beginning just because they're musicians. And Kevin was obviously the gifted musician who already had a real guitar. So is this the drums
that he bought from
my cousin Billy, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Out in the farm.
How was it that your cousin Billy sold the...
He bought better drums after that. These are on the edge of being homemade drums. They were the perfect starter set.
Yeah.
But they were real drums and a real snare, and half of the bass was there, and they had some cymbals and had a hi-hat a little bit, right, but not much. But the price was right. As I recall, it was around $25, right? I bought a bicycle used for $18, so that wasn't huge money.
So did Billy used to come around the house?
No. Billy wasn't. No, Billy didn't participate in our suburban life. No, he wasn't good enough for that. Forget it. And he was older. He was older than I was by a year and a half.
Yeah.
So he might as well have been 50. Right? He had no idea. They were playing the old country music, and they were playing.
I'm just trying to get the essence of how.
They played
the
50s
drums
music. We played 60s music.
I'm trying to get the essence of how the drums.
They were country bumpkins, and we were real suburban.
Somebody must have said, "Hey, my cousin Billy has a set of drums," or something like that.
No, we would visit the farm, and then somebody mentioned, my father or my grandmother, somebody mentioned we'd visit there every week, or they'd come and see us. Most of the time, that's how it went, right? So somehow it came up that Billy had some drums for sale, and that's how it happened. So Darrell ended up with Bill's drums.
So Darrell was interested in these drums?
I think I just brought the drums in. I don't recall. I don't remember how that went, but I don't think we talked directly with Bill Gay. No way. Bill Gay came and lived with my mom and dad for about 6 or 7 months where they threw him out because he was a rebel. He was always in trouble and always making trouble and starting rumors and whatever, right? He was a bad guy. In that way. So Billy and I weren't close.
Was this pre-drum era or after the drums came in?
That was after.
Oh, after.
Yep. Shall we play some FourToGo in the background? If it'll play.
Give us some FourToGo. So it started off, the drums was the original, and then how'd the guitar... How'd the guitar get...
Kevin already had a guitar.
Oh, Kevin.
Oh, yeah, Kevin was... We figured when he was born and he came out screaming, they handed him a guitar, and that's how it went after that.
Where's my...
We're going to be doing a lot of editing now, huh?
No. Okay, so let's look here. FourToGo. Okay, so Kevin was essentially born with a guitar in his hand.
Kevin was extremely music. He had the music gene. It's like we had the car gene, Ted. He had the music gene for sure. And he was a born musician, and he was extremely talented. He could make anything, make music. I told you the incidents when we bought an old beat-up used trumpet, and he brought it to a practice. And at that time, Al Hurt was getting into it and selling stuff. And in the half an hour, he already had something that you could believe he could play it in it. Not the saxophone, but it was a trumpet. I remember that. And we were all some were exasperated because for them, that was impossible. And for Kevin, it wasn't. You could give him anything. He could make it work.
You could just pick it up.
Yeah, he could pick it up and he'd get something out of it, right? That was his gift. That's how he was.
So
left behind, I need your love.
So you and
Peter Zowski, that was the guy we missed before I can remember his name.
So
Morningside Papers.
So you and Darrell knew each other since you were 5.
Yeah, since we were little kids.
And
Darrell was about a year and a half younger than I was. So we didn't spend time in school together.
Same grade?
No, we never in school together.
Oh, never in school together.
No, there was enough separation between us, right? I was in high school, he was in junior high. When I was in grade 1, he hadn't gone to school yet.
Oh, so he was younger than you were?
Yeah, Darrell was younger than me. He'll say he was smarter, but that's up for debate.
And Sandy? And Kevin?
Kevin?
Yeah.
Kevin did well in school, right?
Okay, but when did you get to know Kevin?
He just moved into the neighborhood. He lived in the Mounties house. The Mounties, there was a young couple who lived in that house before, and then it went up for sale, and then the MacMichaels bought the house. Yeah, I think his sister's name was Marla and Reggie and Kevin. And they would, once in a while, they would have a hamburger day over there, and then we'd all come over to the MacMichaels, and the father would be delivering. He'd be the waiter, and he would go into the kitchen and bring the hamburgers out and ask everybody what they wanted on them. And they were a little nervous with all this strange stuff that went on around Kevin. And I guess they wanted to see what kind of guys we were and if we were a good or bad influence. So the mother would be cooking the hamburgers up. And Kevin loved his mother. He loved his mother. He made many a musical tape that he dedicated to her, right? And he respected his father. That's all I know. And Marla was always the pain in the ass sister. And Reggie was just there to back. He loved his brother and would do whatever it took, right? To get on his good side. We always said Reggie was normal. It was too bad about the rest of them, right?
So Kevin moved in. How old was he when he moved
14 years old.
14 years old.
We have a picture in the photo album of him across the street with the Zatzmans in front of their house. And he was 14 at that time, right? Which is pretty young.
And how about Alex?
Alex, I know nothing about Alex's background except what I've told you.
Okay, so he came in. So
he lived downtown, around Portland Street area. The parents rented a house. They were Catholics.
And Sandy Bryson, how did he?
I don't know how they got together with Sandy, but he was a fellow musician. And that's how Sandy ended up the Coal Harbor boy, right? The bad boy of the group. Usually the drummers are the bad boy, but Sandy picked up that slack.
So Kevin moved into the neighborhood when he was around 14.
Yeah.
Into the Mounties house, you said.
Yeah, the Mounties house, yeah. Across the road from my mom and dad's house.
And prior to that, it was just...
the Moffats and the Zatzmans were on both sides of the MacMichael house.
Yeah?
Yeah. People infrequently moved there. There was not very much movement. Most people stayed there for a long, long time.
And so it must have been pretty exciting when somebody new moved into the neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
Hey!
Well, yeah, we were all there with our binoculars out.
Looks like there's a kid moving in.
I think he went over to the Zatzmans one day, and then I think he brought a guitar with him, and then we were like flies to poop. Then we got to know Kevin, and then we could see who he was, right?
And he probably
And
encouraged.
then he and Darrell are the ones who would get together. And
Yeah,
stuff,
and he encouraged Darrell
I was
to
just an observer.
play the drums. Yeah,
Yeah.
you were just.
Well, Kevin was wanting to be in a group or do something too, and I suspect his parents at 14, you had to watch. Very influential age, right?
Wow. So then they were playing together, and then you're not quite sure how the Sandy and Alex came.
We call him Alex because that's who he was then. He'll hate that, but he has to buck up.
And Alex lived in Cole Harbour.
No, Sandy Bryson was the
Oh,
bass player.
Yeah.
He was in Cole Harbour, right? His dad was the taxi driver. Alex, his father was the alcoholic, drank his aftershave. And so when Alex was around all of us, he would stay at different of our houses. He would go home, but he would also stay overnight. My mother would feed him, and Ida would feed him, and the MacMichaels would feed him, right? I don't know if he went to Sandy's place or not. He probably did. But he moved around a lot. Things weren't good at home for Alex. But Alex was a gentleman. Alex was a gentleman. And he just had the girls at his beck and call. And he never took advantage of them. He was just all falling all. He was the silent guy that the women loved, right? And we could never really understand that. But Alex knew he was in control. Totally. And Alex was a man of few words, but a dedicated musician. Right? He sang the background. He played some lead. He was a good lead guitar player and a rhythm guitar player.
So do you have memories of them seeing the very first time the four of them playing together?
Absolutely not. That was just the ebb and flow. It just naturally gelled.
So there was no, a moment.
Don't forget
where
they
you
were
went,
together playing, and then I was brought into the developing picture as the band, right, cemented itself. And they had difficulty getting together and practicing and arguing like artists do. And then that's when they invited me into the picture. Because the mouthpiece is what they needed. They needed a little bossy guy, right? And you know I do that well. So they invited me into that picture. And then of course, my memories are quite strong of it after that. And they were doing house parties like bands did then. And we couldn't do bars. We were all way too young. There was none of that kind of stuff ever. Right? And at the end, when they went, then we had the bedroom.
So you don't have that moment where you went like, whoa, these guys.
When we were at Dartmouth and we played our music and played our own songs and they were clapping and people stopped dancing, then I knew that we were good, that we had something special when we did our own music. But we didn't have our mind on making a record or becoming famous. We were just having a good time. And every penny that we made, every cent we had, any extra profits, we bought better drums, better guitars, better mics. We bought our own sound system in the end. That's what we were there for. To have fun and enjoy it and become real musicians and a good band, as best as we could be, right? And then we would want to get recorded. We talked to Frank Cameron, who was on CHNS, and he listened to our little demo tapes that we made in the basement. And he was a real encouraging, but he said, no, you can.
I see we're going to have to phone Sandy Bryson and verify some of this.
Yes, you'll have to. Well, you'll get your earful from Sandy.
We're gonna have to tether.
Sandy's the real historian, okay? You're interviewing you're interviewing the temporary unit.
Is he, so Sandy, is he computer savvy or not?
No. Well, Sandy has some computer skills, right? But he's no good at that. But he's online.
So we might be able to.
He has the Gasser Club. He runs that. But Sandy would love to tell you, and Sandy can tell you the whole story of. Because when I left, the FourToGo was disbanded. They were over, and then it was the Bedford Row. And that went on for about a year.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. Yes, it's the fake news right here in Larry's Living.